The hum of the starship Aurora's gate was constant, steady enough that Rian had long since stopped noticing it. He was halfway through a recalibration sequence in the engine bay, shirt off, drenched in the glow of diagnostic screens and machine light. The recycled air smelled faintly of ozone and heated lubricant, a scent that clung to everything in the maintenance corridors. He liked this part of the ship, the quiet, the solitude, the endless rhythm of reactors spinning like captured thunder. It was predictable, mechanical, logical. People weren't. Which was why he nearly jumped out of his skin when the door hissed open behind him. He turned, startled, just as someone stepped through the threshold, a figure wrapped in a sleek uniform far too formal for engineering spaces. Her silver hair fell like liquid light around pointed ears, and her eyes, luminous crimson, widened in shock. For a second they simply stared at each other, frozen by the absurdity of the moment. Then the color in her face changed, shifting from its usual pale luminescence to a deep, vivid red that practically glowed under the engine lights. "Oh stars, this isn't," she stammered, voice melodic even in panic. Rian blinked, still holding a wrench midair. Hi." She dropped the datapad she'd been carrying, the clang echoing like thunder. "I'm so sorry," she blurted. "I didn't know anyone was undressed." "Technically, it's a uniform violation," he said. "But I'm off shift, so you're safe." Her hands flew up in mortified defense. "I wasn't looking." "You're doing a great job of convincing me otherwise," he said, half amused. She made a strangled sound somewhere between a gasp and a growl. "Humans have no shame," she muttered. "We used to," he said, "but starships are small." She crouched to grab her datapad, clearly hoping the floor would open and swallow her. When she straightened, her expression was caught between fury and embarrassment. "You're Rian's soul, the engineer," she said, composing herself. "Guilty," he said. "And you are?" "Lieutenant Avelis," she said quickly. "Diplomatic Corps." "Diplomatic." He glanced around the grease-streaked engine bay. "You're a few decks off course." "Apparently," she said. "The navigation layout on your human vessels is inefficient." "We call it charming. I call it chaos. Same thing." Her ears twitched slightly, betraying her irritation. Rian grabbed a towel from the nearest console, wiping the sweat from his neck. "So, Lieutenant," he said, "what brings the galaxy's politest emissary to my cluttered sanctuary?" "I was seeking the auxiliary lab," she said, stiffening. "Your ship's schematic mislabeled the corridors." "That's one way to start interspecies diplomacy," he said. "Walk into maintenance half-dressed humans." Her eyes narrowed, glowing faintly brighter. "Do all of your kind insist on humor as a defense mechanism?" "It's how we cope with embarrassment." "You don't seem embarrassed." "I'm too tired to be." "Then perhaps I should be offended on your behalf." "You're doing great so far," he said. Her lips parted as if to retort, then closed again. "You're impossible. I've been called worse." For a moment, neither spoke. The tension between them felt absurdly fragile, like the hum of the ship itself. If one of them laughed, it might shatter entirely. Finally, Avelis broke the silence. "I should leave." "Probably," he said. She turned, but her sleeve caught on a protruding valve handle, tearing with a faint hiss. She froze, shoulders stiff. Rian winced. "You okay?" "Fine," she said curtly, trying to free the fabric. "It snagged worse." "Hold still," he said, stepping forward. "I can fix it." "I don't require." "Lieutenant, that's an oxygen control line," he said. "If you tear it, we both get an express trip to vacuum." She went utterly still. He reached past her carefully, fingers brushing the material as he unhooked it from the valve. When he stepped back, she exhaled slowly, ears twitching again. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Any time," he said. "Preferably with fewer near-death experiences." She hesitated at the doorway, datapad clutched to her chest. "For what it's worth," she said softly, "I didn't mean to intrude." "I know," he said. But I'm not complaining. Her cheeks flushed again, brighter this time. You humans are insufferable. We're adaptable. That's not the same. Sure it is, he said. Just ask evolution. She shook her head and left before he could add another quip. When the door closed behind her, Rian sighed and stared at the spot she'd stood, realizing his pulse was still racing. Of all the things he'd expected during a maintenance shift, an interstellar diplomat blushing like sunrise wasn't one of them. Great, he muttered. I'm officially living in a bad romance holovid. He tried to focus on work afterward, but his mind kept replaying the look on her face, the way shock had given way to indignation, then something almost human. He'd met Avalis's kind before, but only in formal contexts. The Virethians, a race whose evolutionary lineage balanced between feline grace and crystalline biology. They were known for poise, restraint, and an aversion to emotional display. The fact that one had turned crimson over him was unsettling, and maybe a little flattering. The next day, he told himself to forget it. She'd probably filed the incident as an official complaint, and he'd spend the rest of the voyage in disciplinary lectures about cultural sensitivity. Yet when the next shift cycle began, the door to engineering hissed open again. Avelise stood there, composed this time, uniform immaculate. You're persistent, he said. I'm thorough, she corrected. The ship's diplomatic channel routes through your systems. I require assistance with encryption protocols. Ah, he said. So this is business. You sound disappointed. I'm just not used to visitors who don't panic at the sight of grease. I have seen worse. From humans. From diplomats. Fair. She approached, eyes scanning the consoles. Your interface designs are inelegant. They work. That's not the same as efficient. Efficiency's overrated, he said. Reliability keeps ships alive. She gave him a sidelong look. You speak as if you've seen many die. I've fixed more than I've lost, he said quietly. Something in his tone softened her expression. Then perhaps that makes you valuable. To the ship or to you. Don't push your luck. They worked in silence for several minutes, her delicate fingers gliding over holographic panels while he adjusted power flow regulators. The air between them felt less awkward now, the memory of yesterday hovering unspoken but not forgotten. Your encryption strings are non-linear, he noted. That's Virethian design. You can read it. A little. Your math uses harmonic logic. She blinked. Few humans know that. I had a teacher who believed understanding alien math made better engineers. Wise. He also believed drinking coolant filtered clarity. Less wise. Agreed. A faint smile ghosted across her lips before she caught herself. You're difficult to dislike, she said reluctantly. I'll take that as progress. It wasn't meant as praise. Still counts. Hours passed as they rewrote code and adjusted quantum relays. The hum of the engines became their background rhythm, their movements unconsciously synchronized. When the final encryption string stabilized, Avelise leaned back. It's complete, she said. And stable, he added. You're welcome. For what? For not shorting out the communications array. You doubted me? Not you. The universe. She regarded him for a moment. You humans always joke when you should be proud. We don't know the difference. You should learn. Teach me. She hesitated, caught between challenge and curiosity. Perhaps, she said finally. But not today. You'll come back. If you keep your uniform on. No promises. Then definitely not. Over the following weeks, her visits became routine. Sometimes she came under the guise of work, checking signal alignments or system reports, but more often she lingered just to talk. They spoke of their worlds, of wars and wonders, of what it meant to be small in a universe too vast for certainty. She told him Virethians didn't dream, their minds processed rest as structured thought patterns. He told her humans dreamed because chaos was comforting. You find comfort in imperfection, she said once. It's the only thing we have plenty of. That explains your politics. And your diplomacy, he countered. Touché. The more they talked, the more he noticed how she listened, intently, as if memorizing not his words but the spaces between them. One night, as the ship drifted between systems, he caught her staring at him again, studying, almost fascinated. What? He asked. You breathe differently when you think, she said. That's either observant or creepy. It's curious. Curious how? Your species displays thought externally. Every emotion radiates from your form. You wear it like light. And you don't. We learned to hide. Maybe that's why you blush so well, he said. The color flared across her cheeks again before she could stop it. You're insufferable, she whispered. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. And yet, you're still here. She said nothing, but her tail, usually poised with perfect discipline, flicked once in silent betrayal. Their connection deepened in small ways. He learned her scent, like cold metal and rain, and she learned his laugh, rough but genuine. The crew noticed, of course. Whispers spread through the halls of the Aurora's gate about the engineer and the alien diplomat, about how opposites either balanced or combusted. Neither of them acknowledged it, but something between them was changing, subtle, inevitable. One evening, during a systems check in the observation bay, the lights flickered from a solar flare. The sudden darkness left only the stars and their reflections in the glass. Avelise stood beside him, silent. You ever wonder, he said quietly, what it's like out there? Empty, she said. Maybe, he said. Or maybe it's waiting for us to fill it. With what? Noise. Mistakes. Laughter. Human things. Living things. She turned toward him, her red eyes softening. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The hum of the ship was the only sound between them. Then she stepped back, breaking the moment with practiced calm. I should go, she said. Duty calls. Sanity. Mine or yours? Both. She started to leave, then paused at the doorway. Rian, she said without turning. Next time you're working, lock the door. He smiled. No promises. She exhaled, half sigh, half laugh, then walked away. He watched until the corridor swallowed her light. Only then did he realize he was smiling like an idiot. You're in trouble, he muttered to himself. Big, diplomatic trouble. But deep down, he already knew trouble was the only thing that had ever made life interesting. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Rian lay in his narrow bunk, staring at the faint pulse of the ship's emergency light, listening to the heartbeat's steady thrum of the reactor. Every time he closed his eyes, the image of Avelice's face flickered back, the blush, the startled twitch of her ears, the half-suppressed amusement behind her carefully composed words. He told himself it was just novelty. Humans had been trading with the Varethians for only a decade, and despite all the diplomacy, there was still mystery in them. Still, he couldn't shake the thought that something in that moment, the awkward collision of two species, two boundaries, had cracked open more than protocol. He sighed and rolled over. The ship hummed like a lullaby sung by a machine that never slept, and neither did he. When morning cycle arrived, he forced himself into motion. Engineering was a comfort. It didn't blush, didn't overthink. Circuits did what they were told if you understood their language. He was halfway through recalibrating the plasma conduits when his console pinged, a priority communication from the diplomatic corps. He groaned. Here it comes, he muttered. The message unfolded into a holographic letter. Lieutenant Avelise requests your assistance for a systems integration at 1400 hours. He blinked. She requested me? The console blinked back impassively. He rubbed his temples. Of course she did. He checked the clock. 3 hours. Enough time to worry. He told himself he didn't care, that it was just work, but when the hour came, he still found himself smoothing his hair like an idiot before heading to Deck 5. The diplomatic wing always smelled different. Cleaner, almost sterile, with faint undertones of polished metal and whatever floral compound the Varethians used instead of air fresheners. The corridor lights dimmed slightly as he approached the briefing room, sensors adjusting to his presence. When the door opened, Avelise was already there, standing beside a holographic projection of two intertwining energy streams. "You're late," she said. "By 30 seconds, he said. "I was early yesterday." "That doesn't carry over." "Harsh. Efficient." He grinned. "You practicing human sarcasm now?" "I'm practicing survival." He stepped closer to the display. "So, what's the crisis?" "Cross-species relay alignment," she said. "Your systems and ours refuse to maintain stable resonance." "Resonance alignment," he mused. "That's half science, half stubbornness." "And which half are you good at?" "Both." For the next few hours, they worked side by side, weaving code through harmonics that flickered in colors visible only when their two systems overlapped. Rian adjusted the human conduits while Avelise calibrated the Varethian resonance anchors. Every time their hands brushed reaching for the same tool, the air between them seemed to hum differently. "You're tense," he said quietly. "I'm focused." Same thing, different label. Do humans always reduce complex emotions to jokes? Only the ones worth surviving. She shot him a sidelong glance. "You think humor is survival?" "It's adaptation," he said. "If you can laugh while the world collapses, you still own a piece of it." Her expression softened slightly. "You speak as if you've seen collapse." "I've patched too many ships not to." "And you still laugh." "Because I'm still here." When the systems finally stabilized, a faint harmonic tone filled the air, weaving through their bodies like invisible music. Avelise blinked, surprised. "It worked," she said. "It's supposed to," he said. "But not like this. The resonance feels alive." "You sound surprised." "It shouldn't be possible. You said that last time I fixed your translation node." "That was luck. This is habit." She turned toward him, eyes glowing faintly red under the reflected lights. "You challenge every rule I know. Then maybe your rules are bored." "You're infuriating." Consistent theme. "Why do you never take anything seriously?" "Because everyone else already does," he said. "Someone has to keep balance." For a moment, they stood too close, caught in the rhythm of the humming system that had learned to sing in harmony with them. Then she stepped back, visibly collecting herself. "You may go," she said briskly. "I didn't realize I needed permission." "You need boundaries." "I prefer bridges." That evening, the ship entered a plasma storm, an electric sea that danced outside the viewports in ribbons of gold and violet. Power fluctuations rippled through the decks, and Rian's comm buzzed before he could even grab a coffee. "Engineering," he said. Avelice's voice crackled through, tense. "The diplomatic corps' resonance field is destabilizing." "On my way." He sprinted through the corridor, the lights flickering in time with distant thunder. When he reached her lab, she was already knee-deep in a swirl of failing energy, her hands buried in a control panel sparking with blue arcs. "You're supposed to call for backup," he said. "I am calling," she shot back. "Then let's not die on the line." He dove beside her, rerouting current through a secondary manifold. "You didn't tell me the system was experimental." "Would it have stopped you?" "No, but I'd have worn gloves." They worked fast, fingers moving through the storm of light and sound. The plasma outside flared bright enough to cast shadows like fire across the walls. "We're losing the harmonic lock," she said. "Then we fake it," he said. "Explain." "Humans improvise. Improvisation causes disaster. And sometimes miracles. You gamble with physics. Every day." He slammed a control pad, forcing an overload feedback through the lower relays. The lights went white for a second, and then the hum steadied. The resonance field recalibrated, stabilizing the entire wing. Avelise sagged against the console, exhaling hard. You're insane. Statistically likely. You risked core detonation. And it didn't detonate. Because luck favors idiots. Because I understand what I'm breaking. You shouldn't make that a motto. Too late. For a long moment, they just stood there, catching their breath while the storm outside faded. The only sound was the steady pulse of the stabilized field. You saved us, she said finally. You helped. I followed orders. Then I should give you more of those. You'd miss the rebellion. Perhaps. Her tail flicked once, betraying amusement. I owe you thanks. You already blushed once, he said. That covers it. Her eyes glowed brighter. You humans measure gratitude through embarrassment? We measure it through honesty. Then accept mine, she said quietly. And stop mocking me. No promises. Rian. All right. He grinned. You're welcome, Lieutenant. Avelise, she corrected softly. When you're not saving the ship, you may use my name. Deal. In the days that followed, they saw more of each other than either would admit was coincidence. Sometimes it was an official report, sometimes a calibration, and once an entirely unnecessary check on the engine coolant levels that even she couldn't pretend was diplomatic duty. The rest of the crew started whispering again, but Rian ignored it. He'd never been good at pretending indifference, and the truth was simpler. He liked her company. Beneath all the poise, Avelise was curious, sharp, and, despite herself, drawn to the unpredictable logic of humanity. You baffle me, she told him once. Flattery will get you everywhere. It wasn't a compliment. Still works. You twist everything I say. Only the interesting parts. She sighed, tail flicking again. You make chaos sound noble. It's survival. Then maybe I envy it. The ship continued its mission, charting unknown sectors, maintaining the fragile truce between Varethian enclaves and human colonies. Yet even as peace held, unease grew. Strange anomalies appeared on the sensors, pulses of energy matching neither human nor Varethian signatures. During one late shift, Rian found Avelise studying the readings, her expression grave. What is it? He asked. A resonance disturbance, she said. But it's patterned. Intelligent. Friendly. Unlikely. Then we should prepare. For what? For trouble. You're eager for danger. I just like being right. You're impossible. That's my charm. But the humor faded quickly when the anomaly struck, a wave of energy that rocked the Aurora's gate like a toy in a storm. Alarms blared as systems flickered offline. Shields down to 40%, he said. Navigation's blind. We're being scanned, she said. By what? Something old. They scrambled to stabilize power as the anomaly's core expanded, a luminous sphere of fractal light filling the viewport. The captain's voice came over comms, strained. All personnel, brace for impact. The ship lurched violently, gravity plating buckling under pressure. Rian slammed into a console, pain flaring through his shoulder. Avelise caught him before he fell. Are you all right? Define all right. Alive. Then yes. Sparks rained from above as conduits burst. We need to decouple the reactor before it cascades. On it. They raced through the trembling corridors, the hum of the ship turning into a groan. This thing's feeding on our resonance field, he said. It's converting power into mass. That's impossible. So was last week. Fair. At the reactor core, light blazed like a captive sun. Rian tore open a control panel while Avelise linked her interface node directly to the mainframe. We can't eject it manually, she said. Then we overload it. That's suicide. Only if we fail fast enough. You're not serious. Always. He met her eyes. Trust me. You're human, she said. That's not an answer. It's all I have. Then yes. Together they rerouted the containment lines, forcing the anomaly's feedback into a narrow channel. The core screamed as energy surged through it. "Now!" he shouted. They triggered the release, sending a blinding wave through the ship. The explosion was silent, a pulse of light that expanded outward, shredding the anomaly's influence. When the glare faded, they were still standing. Barely. Smoke drifted through the chamber, mingling with the metallic tang of ozone. Avalis's hands trembled as she disconnected the node. "You're insane," she whispered. "You keep saying that like it's news. You risked everything. So did you. Because you made me believe you'd succeed. That's optimism. That's manipulation. You're welcome." She stopped, realizing he was grinning through exhaustion. "You're infuriating. You already said that. Then let me repeat myself. Infuriating. Noted." She laughed softly, an unguarded, genuine sound that startled them both. "There," he said. "You can laugh. Don't get used to it. Too late." When the crisis finally passed and the ship drifted in recovery orbit, Rian found her in the observation bay again, staring out at the stars. "We made it," he said. "Barely." "That's tradition," he said. She didn't smile this time. "Rian, what we did, it changed something." "In the reactor? In the field? In me?" He frowned. "What do you mean?" She turned to him, her eyes glowing softer now, almost human in their warmth. "When the resonance stabilized, I felt your signal merge with mine. That's how we survived. It hasn't faded. So I can still hear you, even when you're not speaking." He blinked. "You're saying we're connected?" "Entangled," she said. "Quantum resonance between life forms. That's new. And terrifying. For you or me?" "Yes." They stood in silence, the stars reflected in her crimson eyes. "You could break the link," he said quietly. "Maybe. But you haven't. Not yet." "Why?" "Because for once," she said softly, "the silence isn't lonely." He smiled faintly. "Guess you're stuck with me." "I've survived worse." Flattery again? Observation. "Sure." She stepped closer, close enough that the glow from her eyes painted his chest in faint red light. "Humans," she murmured. "You're going to rewrite half our science out of sheer recklessness. And you're going to help us clean up the mess. Maybe. Then it's a start." Outside, the nebula drifted past the viewport, colors shifting like thought given form. Inside, two species stood close enough to feel the same heartbeat through the ship's hum, a quiet proof that sometimes chaos and order didn't destroy each other. Sometimes, they learned to share a rhythm. Sleep was a rumor for the crew after the anomaly. Half the ship still flickered with unstable power fields, and the air smelled faintly of ionized metal. Rian walked the length of the engineering deck alone, running diagnostic patches while the rest of his team rotated through exhausted shifts. He found comfort in the noise, the familiar chatter of reactors and cooling vents. Everything mechanical could be fixed. People were harder. Especially people like Avalis. He paused at the viewport, watching the nebula glow faintly against the hull's curve. The resonance bond she'd mentioned wasn't supposed to exist. Yet even now, when he focused, he could feel her like a heartbeat under the noise. A presence at the edge of thought, steady, curious, too close for coincidence. When he finally left engineering, the corridor lights dimmed automatically to night cycle levels. His muscles ached, and the faint hum in his bones was worse, like the echo of a song he couldn't stop hearing. "I know you're awake," he muttered into the air. A quiet pulse answered, faint but distinct. "You're broadcasting again," came her voice, not aloud, but through the resonance. He nearly tripped. "That's not possible." "Clearly it is. I didn't do anything." "You rarely do. That seems to be enough." "You can hear my thoughts?" "Only when you shout them." "I wasn't shouting." "Humans always think they're quieter than they are." "You could have warned me." "I just did." "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Immensely. He laughed under his breath, shaking his head. Guess privacy's overrated. Among friends, perhaps. The last word lingered like warmth before the connection faded. He didn't see her again for 2 days. Diplomatic meetings filled her schedule, and he buried himself in repair work to keep from thinking about her. Still, the bond flared occasionally. Brief flashes of sensation not entirely his own. A flash of cold air when she entered a chamber, a spike of irritation when someone interrupted her, a sudden calm when she focused on numbers instead of people. It wasn't intrusive, it was grounding. The more he felt it, the less alone he seemed, even in the ship's vast, hollow corridors. When she finally appeared again, unexpected as always, she was waiting outside the engine bay, arms folded, expression unreadable. "We need to talk," she said. "If this is about the psychic conference line, I'm innocent." "It's not psychic," she said sharply. "It's quantum empathy. Sounds fancy. It's dangerous." He motioned for her to follow him inside, away from the passing crew. "You're sure this isn't just emotional interference?" he asked. "We're not built to share signals." "You're not," she corrected. "My species can. So you linked to me accidentally?" "There was nothing accidental about survival." "Then what's the problem?" "It's deepening." He raised a brow. "Define deepening." "Your emotional states influence mine. That explains why I've been craving dignity." "And I've been craving coffee," she said dryly. "A tragic fate. Rian. Sorry." She sighed, frustration breaking through her composure. "You find humor in everything. It's how I keep breathing." "And what happens when your humor drives me mad?" "Then we're evenly matched. You make impossibility sound casual. That's what keeps it interesting." She studied him in silence, red eyes flickering faintly under the dim light. "You're not afraid of this?" she asked finally. "Should I be? It could kill you. You've said that about most things I've done. This is different. Everything's different until it isn't." "Rian. I'm serious," he said. "If the connection's mutual, we'll handle it together." "You assume it's controllable." "Everything's controllable." "That's a lie." "Maybe," he said. "But it's a good one." She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. "You are the most reckless creature I've ever met. Takes one to notice one." Her glare softened. "Why do you always win these arguments?" "Because you start them. That's infuriating. And yet you're still here." Later, during a ship-wide inspection, the bond surged unexpectedly. Rian was tightening a coolant pipe when a wave of anxiety hit him so sharply he almost dropped his wrench. The emotion wasn't his, it burned hot, quick, and focused somewhere above Deck 5. "Avelise," he whispered. There was no verbal reply, only the sharp impression of fear. He didn't think. He just ran. The corridors blurred past as alarms began to wail. Intruder alert. By the time he reached the diplomatic sector, 2 guards lay unconscious near the door, armor scorched. He burst through the hatch to find Avelise crouched behind a console, deflecting plasma fire with a handheld resonance shield. "Nice timing," she called. "You're welcome," he said, diving behind cover. "Who are they?" "Raiders. Scavengers riding the storm currents." "They boarded through the dorsal cargo bay." "Small team." "Small's relative. So is alive." Blaster fire scorched the walls. Rian grabbed a fallen guard's weapon, checked its charge, and glanced at her. "We flank left. You take orders poorly. Then don't give any." She rolled her eyes but nodded. They moved in sync. She sprinted forward, drawing the attacker's attention while he looped around the opposite corridor. The bond pulsed stronger with every movement. He could feel her anticipation, her precision, the way she calculated every motion. When he fired, she ducked an instant before the beam passed over her shoulder, hitting the raider behind her. "That was close," she said. You're welcome. You nearly singed my hair. You're welcome twice. You're impossible. That's a pattern. Within minutes, the corridor fell silent except for the hiss of damaged circuitry. She turned to him, chest heaving, adrenaline still bright in her eyes. You could have died. You're repeating yourself. You ran in unarmed. Didn't have time to be polite. You're reckless. You're welcome thrice. She stared at him, and for a moment neither spoke. The hum of the ship returned, slow and steady. You felt it, she said quietly. The fear. Yeah, he said. That's how I found you. That's not supposed to happen. Suppose we're exceptional. That's not a compliment. Sure felt like one. She stepped closer, close enough for the heat of her skin to cut through the chill of the corridor. You shouldn't risk yourself like that. Habit. Break it. Make me. Her glare softened again. You don't make anything easy. That's why it works. In the aftermath, they were confined to medical for observation. The captain wanted reports, the science division wanted data, and the medics wanted blood samples. Rian refused all of it until Avelise nodded first. We'll share our results, she told the officers. Privately. You trust them? He asked afterward. No, she said. But I trust you not to lie to me. High bar. Try not to crawl under it. No promises. You never promise. You never ask politely. Touché. The following day, the scans confirmed what they already knew. Their neural signatures had synchronized beyond measurable separation. The data labeled it entanglement anomaly 47B. To them, it was something simpler. Connection. It's like gravity, Rian said, studying the readings. The closer we get, the stronger it pulls. Until it crushes us, she said. Or binds us, he replied. That's poetic. Everything dangerous is. Days bled into weeks, the Aurora's gate resuming its mission while rumors of the anomaly spread across command channels. Some called it proof of evolution, others a threat to biological integrity. Rian ignored both. He had work to do, and a habit of finding Avelise wherever she wasn't supposed to be. Once, he caught her in the engine bay again, watching the reactor core like it might answer questions the universe wouldn't. You miss home? He asked quietly. Home is complicated. So's everywhere else. Virith is cold, she said. Predictable. I used to think that was peace. And now it feels like silence. You hate silence. I used to need it. And now you need noise. Perhaps yours, she admitted. He smiled. That might be the nicest insult I've ever received. Don't get used to it. They started working together more often. Calibration shifts, sensor mapping, even the occasional shared meal in the galley. The crew had stopped whispering by then. Open curiosity had replaced rumor. They think we're an experiment, Rian said one day. A walking lab test. They're not entirely wrong, Avelise said. Still flattering. You're absurd. And you're smiling. Coincidence. Sure. But beneath the light words, tension simmered, something neither dared to name. The bond between them grew more intricate, thoughts bleeding into sensations, sensations into shared awareness. Once, during a routine systems check, she brushed his arm, and the air between them flared with static. They both froze. Did you feel that? He asked. No, she said too quickly. Liar. I'm a diplomat. Same thing. Rian. Yeah. Don't push. Always. The turning point came during a deep space maneuver. The ship entered a region dense with resonance storms, unpredictable waves that could tear smaller vessels apart. Command ordered a detour, but Rian proposed something different. We can ride it, he told the captain. Use the resonance drift like a current. That's suicide, Avelise said privately. Only if we're wrong. You're wrong often. Then I'm due a win. She glared but followed him to engineering anyway. Together they recalibrated the field stabilizers to synchronize with the storm's frequency. As the ship entered the drift, the hull sang with pressure. "This is madness," she said. "Welcome aboard," he replied. Lightning crawled across the void, and for a moment, the storm's song merged with their bond, a harmony so perfect it felt alive. The ship glided through unscathed, emerging into calm beyond. "Told you," he said. "Don't," she warned. "Say it." "I told you so." Infuriating. Worth it. That night, the crew celebrated. The ship's galley transformed into a blur of noise and laughter, and for once, Avelise didn't flee from it. She sat beside him, listening, smiling faintly. "You people find joy in everything," she said. "We have to," he said. "Entropy's undefeated. And you laugh in its face. Someone's got to. Maybe that's why your kind survives. Because we're fools? Because you're hopeful." He raised his glass. "To foolish hope." She clinked hers against it. "And to chaos," she added softly. "You're learning," he said. "I'm adapting." "Same thing." "No," she said. "Yours is instinct. Mine is choice." He met her gaze, realizing her face had flushed faintly again under the ship's low lights. "Then that's progress. It's dangerous. So is breathing. You always have an answer. Only when I care." Later, when most of the crew had gone, they remained. The hum of the engines was their only company, steady and low. "When we first met," she said quietly, "I thought you were reckless. You weren't wrong. Now I think you're relentless. That's not far off either. And impossible. My defining trait. Do all humans flirt by arguing? Only with aliens who blush this easily." She rolled her eyes, but her smile lingered. "You're going to cause an interstellar incident." "Already did," he said. "You walked in on me, remember? I regret that daily." "Liar." "Perhaps." They stood in silence, the tension between them warm, magnetic. Finally, she whispered, "Rian." "Yeah. Don't make me regret believing in you." "I won't," he said softly. "But I might make you believe in me more." Outside, the stars drifted past, oblivious. Inside, a human and an alien stood at the edge of something fragile and vast. Not war, not peace, but understanding shaped by laughter, danger, and choice. Whatever came next, it would belong to both of them. The Aurora's gate drifted in the quiet stretch between stars, the hum of its repaired systems carrying an uneasy calm. The crew had begun to recover from the resonance storms, but beneath the routine there was tension, unspoken and growing. Rian felt it in the way people paused when he walked past, in the way conversations stopped mid-sentence when Avelise entered a room. Two beings entangled across species made for good gossip and worse politics. He ignored it as best he could, burying himself in work, yet every time he tried to focus, her presence stirred in the back of his mind like a heartbeat. Sometimes she was calm, sometimes distant. Sometimes she dreamed, or whatever passed for dreaming among Varethians, and he could see flickers of it. Cold marble cities beneath crystalline skies, silence so absolute it pressed against his chest like a weight. He tried not to invade her thoughts, but the bond had a will of its own. Once, while recalibrating the ship's resonance filters, he felt her memory of pain, sharp, electric, the sound of shattering glass followed by a scream she'd never voiced aloud. When he asked her about it later, she froze. "You saw too much," she said. "You can't close your eyes if I'm already there," he replied gently. "Then you'll learn to look away. That's not how connection works. It's how survival does." She turned from him, her movements clipped, precise. "My people purge imperfection. The weak are silenced before they spread their cracks." "Guess that's why we'd never get along," he said. "We collect cracks like trophies." "You think that's noble?" "No," he said. "But it's honest." After that, she avoided him for days. The ship's corridors felt colder, emptier. Even the hum of the engine seemed off balance. Rian worked double shifts to distract himself, but the absence in his mind was worse than any fatigue. Then, one night cycle, a tremor shook the hull. The lights flickered and the bond flared awake like a struck nerve. Rian. Her voice wasn't words but panic. He bolted from his bunk, pulling on his jacket as alarms blared through the decks. "What happened?" he shouted into the calm, unstable resonance pocket, came the captain's reply. "We're caught in a gravitational shear." He sprinted for the command deck, the air vibrating with static. When he arrived, Avelise was already there, hands flying across holographic controls. Her face was pale, eyes glowing violently red. "We're being pulled into a collapse," she said. "The storm's core wasn't empty, it's feeding on us." He joined her at the console, rerouting power from non-essential systems. "If we overload the containment grid, we might break the lock. And if we don't, we find out what the inside of a gravity well looks like." "Comforting," she muttered. "You wanted honesty, not fatalism. They're cousins. You're impossible. And you're stalling." She shot him a glare but kept working. The ship groaned as space around it warped, stars bending into elongated ribbons outside the viewport. "We're losing the outer hull," the captain called. "Evac pods won't survive the distortion field," Rian said. "We're too deep." "Then find a miracle engineer. Already working on one." He leaned closer to Avelise. "We can't outthrust this thing," he said. "But maybe we can outsmart it." "Explain." "The resonance pocket's feeding off our energy signature. If we invert it, turn our field null, it'll lose its anchor. That would shut down life support. For a few minutes. For forever if you're wrong." "I'm not. You always say that before nearly dying. And I always live after." She exhaled sharply. "You're insane. We've established that." Together they synchronized the field generators, bleeding the ship's pulse into negative phase. The lights dimmed, the air thinning as systems cycled down. "Everyone brace," he said. "We're about to play dead." For a moment, everything stopped, the hum, the vibration, even the noise of breath. The ship hung motionless in a void that felt too quiet to be real. Then the sensors screamed as the distortion field recoiled, collapsing inward like a wounded animal. "Now!" he shouted. They reignited the engines in a burst of raw thrust, breaking free from the pull. The stars snapped back into focus. The crew cheered, voices overlapping across the comm. Rian slumped against the console, chest heaving. "Told you it'd work," he gasped. "You nearly killed us," Avelise said. "Details. Important ones. Alive ones." She turned toward him, shaking her head. "One day your luck will run out. Then I'll borrow yours. I don't lend. You just did." Later, when the crisis had passed and the ship drifted in stable orbit around a pale blue moon, they found themselves alone again in the observation bay. The silence between them wasn't strained this time, it was heavy with unspoken things. "You risk too much," she said finally. "It's the only way to learn where the edge is. And what happens when you find it? I take one step past. That's not bravery." "Maybe not." He looked at her reflection in the glass, the faint red glow of her eyes softened by starlight. "It's just how we survive. We make meaning out of danger. Humans," she said quietly, "you build beauty from scars. It's the only raw material we're guaranteed. And yet you laugh. If we stop laughing, we stop existing. That's foolish. That's hope." She turned toward him, her composure breaking just a fraction. "Do you ever stop pretending it's easy?" "No," he said softly. "Because the moment I do, it isn't. Then maybe I envy you." "You shouldn't." "I do." "Why?" "Because you can live in chaos without losing yourself." He smiled faintly. "You say that like it's a choice. Isn't it? Not for us. We're born falling. We just learned to enjoy the view. She blinked, uncertain whether to laugh or scold him. You're impossible, she whispered. Still consistent. You'll burn out one day. Maybe, he said. But until then, I'll keep burning. Her eyes met his, something unguarded there. Fear, fascination, something too raw for words. Then she looked away. We're due in command at 08, she said. Don't be late. The following weeks blurred into a pattern of missions and repairs. Yet something in their bond shifted. It wasn't just proximity, it was rhythm. They moved like two halves of the same instinct, finishing each other's sentences, anticipating each other's needs. The crew began to rely on them as a unit, though no one dared say it aloud. The captain joked once that they were a two-brain problem solver with one brain too many. Neither of them laughed. The tension between them had stopped being funny. It was gravity now, quiet, constant, inevitable. One night, while recalibrating the secondary reactor, Rian caught her watching him. You're staring again, he said. You sweat too much, she replied. Occupational hazard. You could delegate. To who? Anyone not determined to self-destruct. I'm picky. That's obvious. He leaned against the console. You're worried. You're reckless. Those aren't mutually exclusive. They are when you're responsible for lives. So are you. Not yours. Too late. Rian. Avelise. Don't. Can't. She exhaled, frustrated but not angry. You don't understand what this bond means, she said. Then explain it. It's not connection. It's corruption. My kind evolved to merge through resonance only during unity cycles. Temporary, controlled. We never sustain it. You and I, this, defies biology. Sounds like progress. Sounds like extinction. For who? Both. Maybe we'll build something better instead. You think everything broken can be rebuilt. If it can breathe, yes. You're not afraid of anything, are you? Of losing purpose, he said. Everything else is just noise. The next morning, the Aurora's gate received a transmission, an encoded signal from a Varethian command ship. Avelise listened in silence as her people's envoy appeared on the display, their crystalline armor reflecting light like living glass. Lieutenant Avelise, the voice said, emotionless. You are recalled for debrief and reassessment. Your resonance alignment with the human engineer violates genetic protocols. She stiffened. Understood. You will return immediately. I can't. Non-compliance will be considered defection. Then I'm a defector. The transmission cut out, leaving static in its wake. Rian stood beside her, uncertain whether to speak. You don't have to. They'll come for me, she said quietly. Let them try. You don't understand. They'll burn this ship to ash if it means ending the contamination. Then they'll meet resistance. You can't fight an empire. Watch me. Her eyes flashed. You'd risk war. I'd risk anything that tells them we're more than experiments. You're speaking like a soldier. I'm speaking like a human. You can't win this. Then we'll make it hurt to try. You're a fool. You like that about me. Don't flatter yourself. You're blushing again. That's fury. Same color. Rian. Yeah. If they come, I'll surrender. No. You don't get to decide. Neither do they. She stared at him, torn between fury and something far more fragile. You'll get yourself killed. Then I'll die doing something no one's tried before, protecting an alien who walked into the wrong room and changed the rules of the universe. You're impossible. You've said that every day. Still here, though. That night, sleep was a stranger again. Rian lay awake, the hum of the ship louder than usual, like a heartbeat out of sync. Through the bond, he could feel her restlessness, her fear, her guilt, her loneliness. He sent back warmth, the way one might whisper reassurance without words. You're not alone, he thought. You never were. For a long time, there was no answer. Then faintly, I wish I'd never opened that door. No, you don't. You're certain. Absolutely. Humans. Always certain until they're not. We call that optimism. We call it denial. Whatever works. Her laughter was faint, like static across stars. You're unbearable. And you're still here. For now. That's enough. The next day, the Verithian fleet arrived. 3 ships, each the size of a small continent, emerged from warp around the moon. Their presence blotted out the stars. The Aurora's gate went to full alert. They're hailing us, the captain said. Avelise and Rian stood side by side on the bridge as the transmission filled the room. The envoy appeared again. Return the lieutenant, it said coldly. And the human? He is irrelevant. He's the reason I'm still alive, Avelise said. Then he is the reason you're broken. You don't understand, she said. I understand contamination when I see it. You call it that, Rian said, stepping forward. We call it progress. You presume to speak for evolution? No, he said. For choice. The envoy's tone sharpened. Choice is chaos. Chaos destroys harmony. Then harmony was too fragile to deserve survival. The tension broke as the first warning shot seared past their hull, shaking the ship. They've locked weapons, the captain barked. Return fire? No, Avelise said quickly. If we shoot, they'll annihilate us. Rian turned to her. Then we do something else. Such as? Something stupid. That narrows it down. We broadcast. What? The resonance field. The bond. All of it. That's madness. It's humanity. She stared at him. You'd expose yourself to them? To the universe. You'll burn. You'll burn with me. You think that's comforting? You're still smiling. I hate that you're right. Then let's make it count. They ran to engineering, the ship shuddering under another barrage. Rian activated the resonance amplifiers, linking his neural imprint to the field. If this works, he said, they'll feel what we feel. And if it doesn't, then we won't be around to care. You always have an answer. Because I trust the noise. What does that mean? You'll see. The lights dimmed as the amplifiers hummed, the air thick with energy. Avelise took his hand without hesitation. You're certain. Never. Good, she said. It means you're human. He grinned. And you're glowing. It's the field. Sure, it is. The pulse erupted from the ship like a heartbeat across the void, gold and crimson intertwining. It spread through the Verithian fleet, through the surrounding systems, through the stars themselves, a transmission not of words but of emotion. Fear, laughter, defiance, and wonder woven into one impossible harmony. Across the fleet, weapons powered down as the resonance invaded their circuits, forcing them to feel what they'd been trained to deny. Silence followed. Then, one by one, the massive ships powered off their weapons. Avelise stared at the viewport, breath trembling. You did it, she whispered. No, he said softly. We did. The silence that followed the pulse was unlike anything Rian had ever experienced. It wasn't the quiet of engines powering down or comm systems cutting out. It was the stillness of a universe that had, for one impossible heartbeat, remembered what connection felt like. The light faded from the viewport, leaving only the stars, and in that fragile stillness, he could feel everything. Avelice's pulse hammered in his mind, steady and alive, mingled with the stunned awareness of every Verithian aboard their fleet. They had felt it too, the laughter, the grief, the stubborn human refusal to die quietly. For a moment, no one moved. Then the calm crackled to life. All Verithian signatures, the captain whispered. Their weapons are cold. Rian exhaled slowly. Guess empathy's contagious. Or lethal, Avelise said, her voice trembling. You don't sound disappointed. I sound terrified. That's new. It's honest. Outside, the Varethian ships drifted in silence, their formations dissolving like dust in light. Rian stared at them through the viewport, unable to shake the feeling that they were seeing him too, not as a target, but as something inconveniently alive. They won't forget this, Avelise said. Good, he replied. Neither will we. You've humiliated them. I've reminded them. Of what? That fear isn't the only language in the universe. She turned toward him, her expression unreadable. You keep doing that. What? Making catastrophe sound poetic. I'm an engineer, he said. Fixing broken things is how we romanticize survival. She laughed softly despite herself. You're insufferable. And you're still glowing. Stop saying that. Can't. It's a symptom. Of what? Hope. The Varethian envoy sent no further message, and within hours their fleet retreated, vanishing into the distortion fields between systems. The crew erupted in cautious celebration, but Rian didn't join them. He stayed in the observation bay with Avelise, watching the fading echoes of their light. You changed everything, she said quietly. We did, he corrected. You led. We survived. There's a difference. Not in the long run. She studied him, eyes tracing the faint scars on his hands, the exhaustion in his posture. You still don't understand what you've done. Probably not, he admitted. That's what makes it interesting. You merged two species' histories. We just shared a heartbeat. You call it that, she said. But my people will call it contamination still. Then they're afraid. And you. Terrified. You hide it well. Practice. Weeks passed in uneasy peace. The Aurora's gate resumed its course, carrying with it the weight of what had happened. Official reports labeled the event an anomalous resonance discharge, but every crew member knew better. The bond between Rian and Avelise became legend before it even cooled. Officers whispered about it in corridors, scientists demanded data, and command requested formal debriefs that neither of them attended. Instead, they kept to the quiet edges of the ship, where work still needed doing. They rebuilt the relay systems and tuned the reactor harmonics until the ship's hum sounded right again. One evening, Avelise broke the silence. Do you ever regret it? Which part? Any of it? He thought for a moment. Only the parts one didn't do sooner. That's a dangerous answer. It's a human one. You say that like it excuses everything. Sometimes it has to. Her tail flicked once, betraying unease. They'll come back, she said. Not soon. But they will. Then we'll be ready. You can't keep fighting forever. Who said anything about fighting? You think you can talk your way through war? No, he said. I think I can laugh my way through it. You're impossible. And you're predictable. That's not a compliment. It wasn't meant to be. She smiled faintly, then grew serious. Rian, the bond isn't fading. I noticed. It should have. Our resonance should have diverged by now. Maybe it likes us. It's not supposed to like anything. Neither were we. This isn't evolution, it's fusion. You're changing. And you. I'm adapting. Then maybe that's the same thing. Or maybe it's the end of us both. He didn't answer. Words couldn't touch the quiet fear in her voice. Instead, he reached out, placing a hand against the faint glow of her arm. The energy beneath her skin shimmered, responding like static to his touch. You're burning brighter, he said. You're dimming, she replied. Good balance. This isn't a joke. It's not a tragedy either. You don't understand, if this continues, you'll dissolve into the resonance field. You'll lose your body. I've lost worse. You're not listening. I am, he said softly. But I'm also choosing. What? To stay connected. Even if it kills you. Especially then. Her breath caught. Humans, she whispered. You mistake self-destruction for heroism. We mistake fear for meaning. It works out about the same. You'll vanish. Or I'll become something worth remembering. For days, he felt it, the slow erosion of separation. His senses blurred, his thoughts occasionally slipping through the ship itself. When he touched a console, it hummed differently, recognizing him like part of its own circuitry. The engineers noticed, whispering that he moved like the systems were listening. Maybe they were. Avelise watched in silence, her expression torn between awe and grief. You can't hold both worlds, she said one night. They're holding me, he replied. Don't make poetry out of death. Too late. You should be terrified. I am. Then stop. Can't. You're still here. That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters. She looked at him for a long moment, then whispered, If you die, I'll feel it. Then I'll try to make it beautiful. The next crisis came without warning. A signal from deep space, a repeating pattern buried in the cosmic noise, cut through their comms array. Avelise decoded it first, her face paling. It's not Verithian, she said. It's older. Pre-collapse. Meaning something ancient heard your signal. Good, he said. Bad, she corrected. They're answering. Friendly. Curious. Same thing. No, she said. Curiosity is how predators study prey. Within hours, the stars shifted, distortion waves rippling like glass. A shape emerged, not a ship but a structure, a lattice of light spanning hundreds of kilometers, its geometry bending reality around it. The sensors failed instantly. What is that? Rian asked. A listening engine, she said. Built to record sentient frequencies. So we just played the universe's voicemail? We woke something that's been waiting for a voice worth hearing. The structure began transmitting, pure resonance, layered and harmonic. The entire ship vibrated as though the sound were physical. It's scanning us, Avelise said. Our bond. How polite. It's not polite, it's invasive. It's communication. Rian, it's rewriting us. Then let's rewrite back. You can't reason with something that thinks in frequencies. You said that about me once. This isn't you. Maybe it's close enough. Before she could stop him, he stepped toward the central relay, pressing his hand to the core. The bond between them surged, fusing their signals into one. The ship systems lit up, responding to his neural imprint. The structure pulsed in answer, the resonance between them deepening until the walls themselves seemed to hum his name. Rian, Avelise shouted. Let go. I can't, he gasped. It's listening. It's consuming. Then I'll feed it truth. You'll die. Then let me die loud. The energy built until the deck shook violently. Avelise reached for him, but the field threw her back. Through the light, she saw his outline, human and not, body dissolving into waves of gold and crimson. Rian, she screamed. His voice reached her, calm and close. It's okay. No, it's not. You said once my chaos was survival. Not like this. Then make it mean something. You can't. Avelise, he whispered. Remember what I said about laughter? That it's survival. Then don't forget to laugh. The light consumed him completely, bursting outward in a wave that rippled across space. The alien lattice shuddered, its perfect geometry fracturing, then shattered into cascading fragments that scattered like stars reborn. When the light faded, the ship was silent. Systems rebooted one by one. The crew stumbled through the aftermath, stunned but alive. Avelise staggered to her feet, the air still glowing faintly. Rian, she whispered. No answer. She pressed her hand to the console where he had stood, her body trembling. Please, she said softly. Don't leave me with silence. The console flickered. Then, faintly, the hum of the ship shifted, different, deeper, warmer. A laugh, his laugh, echoed through the resonance field. You still blush too easily, it said. She covered her mouth, a broken laugh escaping. You're impossible, she whispered. And you're still here, came the reply, faint but unmistakably alive. Always. Years later, the Aurora's Gate became a legend. Pilots swore the ship hummed when danger neared, guiding them away from collapse. Some said the AI systems learned to laugh. Others claimed a voice whispered through the comms when someone was afraid, always human, always calm. Ave Lise remained aboard as liaison and keeper of the resonance core. Her hair turned silver white, her eyes softer, but her resolve never faded. When cadets asked her if the stories were true, she smiled faintly. He was real, she'd say. And he was human. What happened to him? They'd ask. He became what he always was, she'd answer. Noise that mattered. On her final day, she stood alone in the observation bay, the stars stretching endless before her. You're still listening, aren't you? She whispered. The hum deepened, and warmth filled the air like an embrace. You know the answer, his voice said, soft as breath. I wanted to hear it again. Then here it is, he said. I never left. You should have. Can't. You're too loud. She laughed, tears bright against her cheeks. You saved the universe, Rian. No, he said gently. We reminded it how to feel. She reached toward the stars, her hand trembling. You always win arguments. Only when you start them. Impossible. Consistent. The light around her flared once more, gold and crimson interwoven, before fading into silence. Long after both species learned to live without fear, the story endured. They called it the Resonance Accord, the first time two civilizations shared more than trade or blood, they shared understanding. Somewhere in the hum of their ships, in the laughter that echoed through generations, a human voice remained.